All right. Okay, let's get started. Today we're going to talk about nutrition on a budget. I have these slides up so you can follow along on here. I'm happy to share the slides. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see the nutrition slides? Perfect. Okay. And I can make them full screen if that's better. Go ahead and do that. Okay, I've got some practical strategies for eating well, some money saving tips, and making the most of every dollar. And just to give you a little bit of background about me, my name is Amanda Munoz. I am the development director here at the Thurston County Food Bank. And um, we used to have a nutrition program that talked about saving money, shopping smart, and supplementing your groceries with food banks. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of these things. So today's goals, we're going to start with building balanced meals without having to spend a lot of money. Learning some simple ways to stretch your groceries further using planning, pantry staples, and leftovers to reduce waste. Here at the food bank, that's one of our big goals. We try to reduce waste in a number of ways. And one of those ways is by making sure that we're using and getting the food out quickly. So, know when and how food assistance can help. There's lots of resources in our community and really across the state. We have done a good job and we're working to do a better job as a whole to have a good food security plan for our community, but also our state. And then hopefully today you'll leave with a few meals that you can actually use this week. So let's jump in. So, what does eating well really mean? And I am going to preface that I am not a nutrition expert here, but um, we have our resources here at the food bank that I've pulled from and some lived experience that people have shared. And so I've pulled from those resources. So what does eating well really mean? Well, proteins. We always talk about proteins at the food bank. And so ensuring that your meals have proteins. And one thing that is really important is seeing what kind of options you have besides red meat for proteins or besides chicken and fish. Beans is an excellent source of proteins. You can do the shelf stable beans, you can do canned beans, and there are a lot of affordable options there to get you the protein that you need for your meal. Lentils is another option. Eggs, that's probably my oldest son's favorite way to consume Protein. Eggs, he loves them. They're super easy to make, kid friendly most of the time. It's pretty easy for young kids, young folks to make those. So, chicken, tuna is also an affordable. There's canned chicken. I don't know if you all have ever seen that, but there is canned chicken, canned tuna. So these are some shelf stable options for protein, but you can also look at, fresh and shop sales and things like that. Peanut butter, tofu, all very good sources of protein. And then we move on to the produce side of things. We live in a um, it's a great growing community that we live in. And so fresh, affordable, frozen is a convenience factor. And there are studies to show that it doesn't really affect the nutrients that you're getting for it. So frozen is also an excellent option. And canned with little or no salt added is really the way to go if you can get it, not in the oils and things like that. One thing I will say about fresh food, at the food bank, we have a farm stand we do during the summer months. And so that's actually happening now. And it's a place you can go. It does not count as a visit or anything like that. You can go and shop the farm stand, and it's all fresh, mostly locally grown food, and it's out there for everybody to have. So, yeah. one great way to get some fresh food without paying anything. And then another option is to grow food. You can try your hand at growing. I'm not great at growing, but the food bank itself is wonderful at growing food. We've got some farms, and so we stock our pantries with fresh and locally grown food as well. Then we've got the whole grains, oats, brown rice, whole grain pasta, whole grain bread, and corn all fall into this category. And healthy fats. So peanut butter doubles over here, nuts and seeds, olive, canola oil, avocado. Avocado oil is also an option too. And so these are kinds of some basic areas. But where we're going to kind of head into next is, what does a budget friendly plate look like? So half of it would be your produce, your greens, your fresh food, or your frozen veggies. My personal favorite frozen veggie is broccoli. I think it's so easy, and you can add a little bit of salt to it. It's excellent, but it can be fresh as well. And so, like I said, some of those resources that you can really navigate to. There's usually also co-ops and things like that in different areas, and we have wonderful farmers markets here in Thurston County and really throughout the state. And so those are often ways that you can purchase more for a little bit less. And then your plate will want about a quarter protein, so it can be baked beans or lentils. Those, like I said, are the really affordable ones. But really, canned fish, canned tuna, canned salmon, um, those are also pretty affordable options as well. Eggs have kind of stabilized, um, and so those are some options for your protein. And then you'll want your grains in your starch. And so it can be oats, rice, potatoes. Rice is a really affordable option there. Tortillas are also a really good option, an affordable option. Um, and so these are things that can comprise your plate, but how do you fit it all together is kind of where the magic happens. So let's dive into grocery bills and ways to lower your grocery bill. You always want to plan before you shop. That's one of the best, most effective ways to lower your grocery bill. And if you stick to your list, it tends to pay off. That was a pun. So always plan. I like to go to the store and I plan for 7 meals because I make one trip to the grocery store per week. Some people, I've seen people do monthly trips and they supplement those with weekly trips to restock fresh food. But a safe bet would be start with 3 to 5 meals. It's a little bit easier. It can be very overwhelming if you're not used to doing this ahead of time. And there are apps that you can use that will help you with your meal planning and your shopping. Um, and so I always plan my meals kind of around what I have in my pantry already. And so, for example, I do an inventory every single week about what do I have in my pantry, what do I have in my freezer, and what do I have in my fridge that is good for another week. So if I may have purchased extra chicken one week because it was on sale, and I always shop a sale. Um, and so if I see that I've got 2 or 3 pounds of chicken, then I know that we're going to be using those for meals for that week. And then I build my grocery list around that. Well, what are we making with the chicken? Well, I have rice in my pantry too. Let me buy some ingredients to make it a fun meal for everyone. You're going to want to compare unit prices instead of package prices when you're shopping too, because this is something that if you go to bulk stores especially, this is the most helpful tip, is you look and on the barcode, right below the barcode, there's a unit price. And you want to take that price and compare it to other unit prices, because what happens is you get more in a package, so it's more expensive naturally. And then the other package has less, but the cost is lower. But the ratio of what's in those packages to the price doesn't add up. And so your unit price will tell you which one's really giving you the best price for the exact amount that you're getting. You can always choose store brands when the ingredients and quality of it meets your needs. And so I definitely look at store brands for ingredients that are being cooked down because you can't taste those typically. You can't taste the difference as much. And a lot of the time they are packaged in the same warehouse facilities. So you can do a lot of research and deep dive into that. Again, I do a lot of my shopping at Costco. And so one thing I found out is that, the batteries that Costco produces are produced in the same place that the Energizer batteries are produced, or Duracell, one of those two. Um, so you can definitely look for those opportunities where you can swap out for some store brand items. And it's not always ideal. I will say that, I have children who are very picky. And my younger son will not eat macaroni and cheese that's store brand. He can tell the difference, he can taste the difference. So I splurge there, but where I might kind of splurge there, I cut back somewhere else and buy store brand of something different. And then always buying versatile staples that work in multiple meals. So thinking of like seasonings that work in many meals, rice can work with so many meals. So just really thinking about ways that you can get the most out of a product and make it the most. And so and like I said at the beginning of this, shop your kitchen first, your freezer, your fridge, your pantry. You always want to see what you have and what you can build on from there. When I first started out, living as an adult in the real world, um, I did not, I didn't know this. And a lot of our clients don't know this either because they don't come from food secure homes, and I didn't come from a food secure home. And so I didn't realize that there were extras in pantries and that you should shop your pantry. I didn't do that for many years. And we ended up wasting a lot of food during those years. And as I kind of got older and started digging into this and really kind of found a need for this in my own life, I realized that that's food secure homes. We do have extra things. And so we do shop our pantries and our fridges and our freezers before we go and build out a meal list. We don't have to buy every single ingredient for every single thing we're making. And sometimes if you make a bulk of something, and we'll talk more about this, but if you make a bulk of like, um, pulled pork, that's a good one. You can often repurpose half of that meal, half of that meat for a completely different meal. And so that's kind of something to think about when you're also making your plans. So fresh, frozen, or canned, I kind of touched on this earlier as well, but fresh is really great when it's in season or on sale. You really want to look for food that your family will eat, or you will eat, and you're going to want to look for things that are in season because that's when the cost is lower. They don't have to bring it in, they don't have to import it, ship it, nothing like that. And so always seasonally, I like to think of it as eating seasonally. In the fall, we're looking at potatoes, we're looking at eating squash and all of those varieties. There's lots of varieties of squash. And then in the spring or in the winter months, it might be a little bit harder to find things, but um, spring and summertime, you get more varieties of different things. And so thinking about eating seasonally is how I kind of like to put that. Frozen meals are really, not meals, sorry, frozen vegetables, frozen food is really often, it's convenience and it does last for a long time. And if you find something on sale, you can freeze it and save it for yourself for later. And it really doesn't lose much of its nutrients in that process. Not nearly as much as, I thought when originally kind of learning about these things. Um, so you'll want to think about choosing plain vegetables or fruit when you're freezing or when you're purchasing frozen food, but also when you're freezing it. You want to freeze it when you're purchasing. If you purchase it with less additives, less things added, you really get more of the whole product, and so it's a better bang for your buck, and it's also just a better health choice because you know what you're putting into it after you've cooked that frozen um, item. And then canned food is the most long lasting of these typically, and it's shelf stable, which is one of, again, another really big selling point because at the food bank, we often have to consider the fact that, some of our clients may not have access to refrigerators regularly. But also, in terms of preparing for emergencies, if there were to be an emergency, and power were to go out, shelf stable items make for a really good option to have on hand, and they last for years and years and years. So you'll want to look for lower sodium options. You really want to try to find things that are in water. I always drain and rinse whatever I am consuming from a can. Um, our personal favorites are beans and corn from a can, just because those are kind of what I was used to growing up, but everybody has their preferences. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about fresh, frozen, canned. I think there's a place for all three of these in everyone's kitchen, should they choose to have them. So, and we do also provide all of these options, like I said, at our pantries as well. And then building a budget friendly grocery list. So you always want to think about what you're cooking, what your meals are. And here's just an example of what that might look like. You want to have a list of your proteins, your staple items. Staples are really your shelf stable things, shelf stable foods that that will last you quite a bit of time and you will reuse over and over and over. So, for example, if I buy rice, I'm going to buy enough rice to last at least 3 meals because I can cook it different every time if I want to, or it's just a nice um, side dish to have on hand. Same thing with potatoes. If you think about it, you can boil potatoes, you can bake potatoes, you can fry potatoes. There are lots of ways to utilize these ingredients. And so that's something you really want to think about with staples. And it's always a good idea to have lots of staples stocked up on, but keep an eye on your expiration dates because they don't last, many of them don't last as long as, some of your other shelf items. You always want to look at your produce. Bananas are one of the more affordable options for getting some fruit in your system. We talk about eating the rainbow here at the food bank. We've got some resources on how to eat the rainbow. And so this kind of reflects that. We've got yellow for bananas, orange for carrots, red or green for apples. Cabbage can be green or purple. And then always, like I said, think about your seasonal produce and what's in season and how can you cook it. And then finally, always think about your flavoring. Flavors that I like to keep on hand all the time are garlic. I like to keep garlic powder on hand, but it can be real fresh garlic as well, salt, pepper, and onion powder. Those are some easy ways to spice up some food, but having your regular staples on hand is also very important. I always like to add salsa into this because I think salsa is also it can be used in a variety of ways. And then you'll think about low sodium broth, oil and vinegar, things like that. With broth, you can pretty easily make it yourself. But if you're like me, time is really, it's, very limited. And so I don't have time to make my own homemade broth. So for me, it is actually easier to just buy it because I'm not going to be spending as much time getting the resources I need to make the broth versus just purchasing it from the store. Okay, so one grocery trip, multiple meals. That's kind of a logic behind this because we also, if you've ever been shopping when you're hungry, you kind of grab whatever's on the shelf. Um, so thinking about this, you can think about cooking one pot of rice or grain is going to be able to serve you for multiple meals. Rice also refrigerates really well and reheats nicely after that. And so you can think about meals that do that as well. Prepare your beans, your lentils, your chicken, any other protein options after your meal, just so things are easy to grab once you're done. After your grocery trip, you're going to want to prep your vegetables because I mean, I can't see who's in the room, but if I would have to raise my hand if somebody asked, how many times have you opened the fridge and your vegetables were have gone bad? And that happens to me like all the time. I mean, probably almost weekly. So when you wash and chop them ahead of time, they're just much more likely to get eaten because they become a convenience food. Um, and then again, you can look at these things and use them for different combinations. So some ideas for that are burrito bowls. Big fan of burrito bowls personally because you can customize those ingredients for anybody in the household. So if I really enjoy olives and onions in my burrito bowl, but my 12-year-old son absolutely cannot do onions, then he can customize his bowl to have what he wants in it. Vegetable fried rice, again, rice is one of those things that it reheats really well. And so if you make a pot of like white rice or just a big pot of rice and you use half of it one night, you can take the other half and fry it up, put some soy sauce and some vegetables in there, and you've got a nice little dinner. Soup and chili also reheat really well, and they feed a crowd. So those are also really great options for making multiple meals. You can freeze those items as well, soups and chilies, really all of these you could freeze, and then you can pull them out of your freezer the next week. If you don't want to have chili 2 weeks in a row, you can freeze it and have it in a month's time. Tacos and wraps are also a big hit in my household because, again, you can customize those. You can put what toppings you want on them. You can have different options for maybe the filling of those tacos. Maybe you have someone who loves tofu, but they're the only one. You can make them tofu tacos and bean tacos for everybody else. And then wraps, similarly, we love making wraps because it's a no cook meal for us. And so, I mean, you can make wraps where you have to cook as well, but we just like to throw in some cold chicken from a prior meal, some lettuce, and things like that. Big thing to remember is grain and proteins are really important for your meals because they help keep you full longer. And so a grain protein vegetable bowl is also just like a really simple formula. So rice, chicken, whatever vegetables you have on hand, potatoes, steak, whatever vegetables you have on hand, chicken, beans, and corn. And sorry, that was two proteins. Rice, beans, and corn. There we go. So just some ideas there. And then stretching your food. Again, I was kind of touching on this there, but you can double up when you're cooking your meals. I love to double up on my chili recipes or anytime I make a soup because I will put it into a big container and freeze it, and we'll have it in a week or 2 weeks even. So always, if you want to, you can definitely double up. I know there's been many times where I've used half a tube of tomato paste, for example, when I could have just doubled the recipe, used the whole tube, and made twice the amount, and then I wouldn't have had to waste the other half. Um, Repurposing it, I talked a little bit about this at the beginning with pulled pork, but chicken. If you're repurposing chicken, you can turn it into tacos one night, and then you can turn it into soup another night. Rice, similarly, you make rice for a side dish, but then you can also do rice bowls with the protein and the vegetables, and then fried rice as well. And those are all different meals, but they use the same ingredients. And so you're not letting things expire. You're not throwing away leftovers. That's a big thing in my house too. My kids are not fans of leftovers, so I have to get creative when we're using leftovers if we have them. And then again, love your freezer. Your freezer is going to be your best friend. You can freeze bread, you can freeze your cooked grains, you can portion out your meat. Soups freeze really, really well. And you know what they say, like it's like cooking the soup twice, so they get more flavorful the next time. Um, and then again, any leftovers you have, you can freeze. I also have heard you can freeze milk. I personally haven't done it, but they do also have shelf stable milk. I know we haven't touched on that, but that's something that some people don't know, surprisingly. But they do have shelf-stable milk. I know because we provide it at our pantries, but they also have milk alternatives as well. So a few quick meal ideas, breakfast, oatmeal, banana, peanut butter, and you can change the toppings. So every day, instead of banana and peanut butter, the next day you could do oatmeal, strawberry, and yogurt. Oatmeal's raspberries and maple syrup, any kind of combination that you want to do. Lunch, bean and rice bowl, frozen vegetables, plus the salsa. Dinner, pasta, vegetables, beans, or ground meat of some kind. Another dinner idea, baked potato, beans, vegetables, cheese. That's a vegetarian friendly, vegan friendly option to, not the vegan because of the cheese. Take off the cheese and you've got a vegan friendly option. Super chili made with beans, vegetables, and a protein. And then again, snacks. You can think about having fruit for snacks. Peanut butter and fruit go so well together. I remember that eating that a lot in childhood. And then yogurt is a great snack. Popcorn is another one. Vegetables, hummus. These are all really good options to snack on. Very affordable options. And you can actually make hummus fairly easily. People are often intimidated, but it is not a super difficult thing to make. So when the budget is really tight, start with filling your plates, start with filling your plates and your carts with versatile staples. So oats, rice, potatoes, pasta, beans, lentils, all of these things. Um, Use frozen and shelf-stable foods to reduce spoilage. And I talked a little bit about this, but frozen foods have they retain a lot of their nutrients. So don't ever be afraid to gravitate towards frozen foods, especially it's better to eat frozen food, frozen vegetables than it is to eat no vegetables. And right now it's a little bit safer too. Prioritize foods that can become several meals. And so think about, rice was a good example of that. And then importantly, look for your community resources before you run out of food because there's so many resources. You can even plan in a trip to a local co-op or a food bank as part of your budget. So you can say, one out of 4 weeks, I'm going to go to the food bank and I'm going to use that food to supplement. And then again, because the food bank's here not just for, not just for community members who are, have no food in their pantries. It's also here for people who are, just needing a little bit of extra food in their household, whether that be because it's summertime and kids are home from school, or the price of gas has gotten a little too costly, or the rent has gone up again. My car broke down and I have to pay a $1,200 car bill or $600 tires. I had that happen one year where I desperately needed tires and they were $600. And yeah, that can tip a budget. And so just remembering that we are here for that. WIC is also a really great resource. And then obviously SNAP is another option and resource. But using a food bank or other food assistance resources, it's very important to remember that that's why we're here, and our doors are always open. So a simple weekly planning routine. Check what you already have. Pick 3 to 5 meals. I I go with 7, but not everybody does 7. It's great to start with 3 to 5. Choose meals that share ingredients. So think about how you can really stretch your ingredients. Make a grocery list and set a spending limit. Shop the list. This is the biggest thing. When I shop with my kids, and they don't love to shop anymore, and they're a little bit older, which is that's good for me. They would throw things in the cart. Oh, mom, can I get this? Oh, mom, I want that. And we'd veer so far off the list that I'd probably spent almost double what I would have intended to spend if they weren't there. But shopping your list, staying on with just what you need, and reminding yourself that, oh my gosh, yes, there's a new flavor of this, but I don't need to try it today. Um, Comparing unit prices is very important. And again, avoiding shopping when you're hungry. We've all done it, and maybe not all done it, but I've certainly done it. And yes, it's not my favorite. It's not a good experience because I leave with a lot of stuff. And then plan one use it up meal for your leftovers. And just thinking about, what is about to expire and how you can use that in your meals. So building a meal, again, you pick a grain, you pick a protein, you add produce, and then you add flavor. And these are some options for you to use with that. But their lists can be so long, but these are affordable options that can comprise a meal. And you could get rice, and you could go with three different proteins, and that's three different meals. But you've stretched your rice to go however far you want. And then some takeaways from this, nutrition does not have to mean expensive or specialty food. Planning is a very powerful tool when you're working in a budget. And honestly, when you're just working to have a more, a more nutritious meal, and making sure you're getting all of those pieces to it. Protein, produce, grain, or starch is a great starting point. Fresh, frozen, and canned foods all fit into a good meal, or all make a good meal. Use community food resources when you need them or at any time. Small changes repeated consistently can make a meaningful difference. And one last thing I will leave off on is that your expiration date for your canned foods is likely, if you look at WSDA guidelines, not WSDA, USDA guidelines, your expired food can go for up to 4 years after its expiration date. So don't necessarily chuck it out, but if it has milk-based, any kind of milky content in it, or if it's acidic, like tomato, go ahead and throw those out if they're past date. But anything else, likely, if you open it up and it smells okay and it looks okay, then it's probably still good. So we've got a couple more minutes. If anybody has any questions, um, yeah, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll hang around if anyone has questions, but if not, have a wonderful day and thank you so much for joining me. Hope you were able to take something away.